Introduction. The world never ends with a scream. It ends with silence, with a countdown, with numbers that mean everything and nothing. At 7:46 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the first unconfirmed reports slipped through NASA's Near-Earth Object Alert System. A massive asteroid, long hidden in the blind path of the sun, had broken into the clear. It was not a near miss. It was a direct path. In less than 72 hours, it would meet the Earth at speeds no defense system could withstand. No heroic rocket strikes, no cinematic escape hatches, no someone else will figure it out in time. Yet the greatest threat was not the rock itself. It was what the world would do about it, or fail to do. Behind closed doors in Washington, in war rooms and secret chambers, the debate began. To strike or not to strike? Military generals saw opportunity streaking from the heavens. One well-placed nuclear launch could not only shatter the asteroid, but also reposition military dominance for decades. Scientists, silenced and overruled, warned of cascade consequences, shards raining down, orbital collapse, and the chain reaction of destruction multiplied. The public knew nothing. Government spoke only in whispers, tightening their grip as time slipped away. But silence never protects for long. In New Mexico, inside a desert research center few had clearance to know existed, a small team of scientists and analysts uncovered fragments of the truth. They saw the classified strike orders, the timing of the warheads, and the hidden agenda buried beneath planetary defense. And they realized if the missiles launched, humanity might meet its end faster than the asteroid alone could deliver. They had one impossible mission: stop the countdown, stop the launch, and stop the wrong decision from compounding the inevitable. They had no army, no political backing, and no time. What they had was each other, and a clock ticking down to 10 minutes that would define the fate of every man, woman, and child on Earth. The world is about to find out that the most dangerous thing in a disaster is not nature, it's people. And when the final countdown begins, every second will matter. Because once the clock strikes impact, there's no turning back. Prologue. It started as a blip on a monitor. A faint pulse of light on a high-resolution screen at the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California. To the untrained eye, it was nothing more than background static. To the eyes that mattered, those trained to stare into the abyss and name it, it was impossible to ignore. Dr. Olivia Mercer leaned closer, her coffee cooling beside her untouched. The faint streak cutting diagonally across her telescope feed wasn't on her predictive chart. Every planet, every asteroid, even debris fields had their signatures, their ellipses mapped and forecasted with obsessive accuracy. This was different. The software flagged it within seconds, drawing a red box around the arc of light. New object detected. Probability, pending calculation. Dr. Mercer's fingers danced across the keyboard, pulling velocity and trajectory data. She froze. For the first time in 17 years of tracking near-Earth objects, she felt her throat tighten. This one wasn't skimming a near miss like the dozens before. It wasn't tumbling along some harmless orbit to be forgotten. It was coming. And it wasn't going to swerve. By the time Mercer confirmed the initial reports, the asteroid already had a name in their internal system: RX-4571. A rock larger than Manhattan, traveling at 30 kilometers per second. The initial models estimated impact in 72 hours. Direct hit, central hemisphere. The kind of strike that ended epics, not headlines. Mercer stood from her console, her pulse surging in her ears. She wanted to shout, to call every official within range, to grab humanity by the shoulders and scream what was racing at them. Instead, she picked up her phone, flipping it to her classified contact list. Her thumb hovered over the red-coded numbers, the ones reserved for the highest clearances. Her finger never pressed call. Behind her, a voice cleared its throat. Dr. Mercer. The flat tone was too calm for the news screaming on her monitor. She turned to see two men in dark suits at the entrance to her lab. They didn't scowl, didn't glower, and didn't bear threats. That wasn't necessary. Their presence was enough. White House Security Council. The small silver lapel pin spoke louder than any words could. "We need you to step away from the console," the taller one said. His expression held no malice, only inevitability. Washington, D.C., 9:21 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Roosevelt Room smelled of coffee and cold sweat. A half-dozen generals leaned over scattered satellite prints, as if staring long enough could erase the numbers. The president sat at the head of the table, hands clasped so tight the knuckles were ghostly white. "Confirm it again," she demanded. Her science advisor, Professor Alan Wang, adjusted his glasses with trembling fingers. "Madam President, the object's trajectory crosses directly into impact with Earth. There's no margin of error. At its current mass and velocity, extinction level is not an exaggeration. We're looking at a release equal to millions of Hiroshima bombs detonating at once." Silence choked the air. Some disasters allowed negotiation. Hurricanes could be evacuated from, wars could be delayed, and viruses could be contained. However, humans couldn't negotiate with an asteroid. And yet, bargaining began. General Kane, Chief of Strategic Defense, slammed a folder onto the table. Inside were schematics of missile silos, launch vectors, and nuclear payload calculations. "We've known this was possible. We're ready. A strategic nuclear strike before atmospheric entry could break the object, shatter it into harmless pieces. If we hesitate, we lose our only chance." Professor Wang shook his head. "Shatter it? Into how many pieces? Into how many smaller rocks, all still hitting the Earth? Generally, you don't turn a bullet into dust mid-flight, you make buckshot. The debris field itself could collapse orbital satellites, block out sunlight, destabilize." "Spare us the lecture," Kane cut him off sharply. His tone had the razor's edge of someone used to being obeyed. "Madam President, every superpower is already preparing to act, whether we approve or not. China has their Long March rockets on standby. Russia will move their own arsenal. If we don't make the first move, if we don't lead, then we lose global dominance in these final hours. We strike first. For humanity, and for America." The president leaned back slowly, every sound in the room muffled against the roar in her mind. These weren't the conversations she had trained for. This wasn't policy debate or political maneuvering. This was the end. And in the end, every choice could be the wrong one. Colorado, Classified Defense Operations Bunker. Deep under the mountains, 15 stories beneath the rock, a team of classified operatives watched the world narrow. They weren't White House staff. They weren't household names. Most were analysts and scientists blacklisted for challenging official narratives, the quiet rebellion of intelligence work. The room vibrated faintly from generators, as screens cascaded data across the walls. Dr. Daniel Heller, a computational physicist turned reluctant whistleblower, slammed his fist against the desk. "They're going to do it. They're actually going to launch the nukes." Across from him, Maria Torres, ex-CIA analyst, scrolled through intercepted communications. Her brown eyes were steady, her voice low, but her pulse betrayed her. "The orders are classified, but the timing lines up. If they launch their solution, we're looking at 100 impacts instead of one. Cities flattened. Oceans boiling. It won't save us. It will kill us faster." "Can't they see that?" one of the younger tech specialists blurted. "Don't they listen to the math?" Heller gave a dry, bitter laugh without humor. "They don't care about math. They care about control. A global disaster is also an opportunity for new borders and new dominance. They'd rather roll the dice and claim they tried than admit they were powerless." On the wall screens, a digital clock blinked relentlessly. 72 hours 0 minutes and 0 seconds. Hours until contact. Fewer until launch authorization. The bunker fell silent, each person realizing the unspoken truth. No one else was going to stop this. They would have to. A scattering of experts against the largest military machine on Earth. The battle wasn't against the asteroid anymore. It was against time. It was against their own government. It was against the sickening reality that humans were capable of causing their own extinction, faster than any rock from the heavens. In orbit. 100 miles above Earth, where silence was eternal and the horizon curved forever, a satellite telescope caught one of the first photographs of RX 4571. A jagged black shadow crossing the stars. It was not beautiful. It was not awe-inspiring. It was the face of inevitability. The image was transmitted back to a dozen ground stations. Within 5 minutes, it was encrypted under national security orders. Within 10, it was scrubbed from all but 4 secure servers. Within 15, rumors trickled, anonymous posts on encrypted boards, whispers inside academic circles, and text messages between astronomers who signed their warnings with shaking hands. Human fear traveled faster than any official order. Closing of the prologue. At 11:23 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 3 days before impact, the missile silos in South Dakota blinked from standby to active. Purple codes confirmed lattice-lock trajectories. Nuclear payloads stood by for the launch sequence. Inside a locked government chamber in Washington, the president sat alone in the dark. Her hand hovered above the secure phone, her eyes locked on the classified briefing folder in front of her. It didn't feel like a choice. It felt like a trap. And hundreds of miles away, in a bunker choked with recycled air and fear, a small group of scientists looked at each other, realizing the truth for the first time. If they couldn't halt the launch order, if they couldn't prove the danger hidden beneath the illusion of salvation, the missiles would fly. And if the missiles flew, humanity wouldn't have 72 hours left. It would take 10 minutes. Chapter 1: The First 72 Hours. The dawn light in Albuquerque painted the desert in shades of copper and blood. Dr. Daniel Heller had not seen more than 2 hours of sleep since the word asteroid jumped from speculation to classified emergency. His eyes burned as he adjusted the cracked plastic frames of his glasses, squinting against the harsh New Mexico sun. 10 hours ago, he had been a ghost in the machine, just another theoretical physicist hiding in the shadows of government mismanagement. Now, every beat of his pulse seemed chained to that number on the countdown. 72 hours. 72 until the sky broke open. He sat at the end of a cafeteria bench inside the Los Alamos Research Annex, untouched coffee cooling in thin paper beside him, while Maria Torres spread classified satellite images across the table. The files were stolen from an intercepted scrambled Defense Department communication relay that the small rebel science cell still had access to. The risk was staggering. But so was what stared back from the grainy images. A dark speck against the stars, captured from orbit at magnification 300x. Heller leaned forward, bracing his jaw against his palm, studying the jagged black profile. It wasn't elegant like movie versions of killer asteroids. It was ugly. Uneven, fractured, pits running across its face like old scars. It looked like something that had clawed its way across the void for millions of years, waiting specifically for this collision. "It's bigger than yesterday's estimate," Maria whispered. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly, fingers brushing across the file. "We're looking at nearly 9 miles in diameter, if the current data is right. Move that fast, hit our atmosphere, and it's game over." She closed her eyes a moment before continuing. "They'll still try the nukes." Daniel sighed. He had warned about this scenario in lectures, papers, and rejected think tank proposals. Nobody listened until it was too late. Of course they will. Guns never saved us from everything, but it's the only language they know. "Maybe a nuke could work," said Dr. Arun Patel, the youngest of their group of 4, his voice uncertain. There's a small chance. If you split it early enough. Daniel cut him with a glare. You don't break a hammer by shooting it. You just make the pieces smaller. And every piece still cuts. Even one strike in the Atlantic could cause super tsunamis. Those fragments would darken the atmosphere for years. Arun swallowed, cheeks reddening. I'm just trying to look at something that's not absolute hellfire. Heller pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose. I respect optimism. But I'll respect realism more. If they launch that arsenal, there's no simulation where we survive. Silence fell across the group. The bunker was quiet, except for the faint hum of fluorescent lights, and the occasional burst of static from their satellite receiver. Outside, the New Mexico morning was innocent, with the sun climbing, trucks carrying groceries to unopened diners, and dogs barking in sleepy neighborhoods. People woke their children, made lunches, and commuted to schools and jobs. Not knowing the sky was already cracked. Maria broke the silence. The orders are already lining up. They go active in 12 hours. Standard defense condition. It's going to code green and then? She let the words fade. Everyone knew what would follow. Daniel rubbed his face. He had once imagined disasters as external. Quakes, floods, pandemics. Always something nature unleashed. But sitting here now, the asteroid was only half the enemy. Humans were the other half. He checked his watch. 71 hours 4 minutes and 22 seconds. Countdown hovered in his head with every glance. Washington, D.C. Across the country, Connor Reed strode hurriedly through the steel corridors of the Pentagon. He wasn't a scientist. He wasn't military brass. He was something stranger, a systems analyst whose specialty was predictive modeling classified algorithms that didn't just read data but tried to read people and their decisions. This morning, his entire program had collapsed. Every one of his models projected nuclear launch authorization within 12 hours. Every model showed higher casualty likelihood when humans interfered. The asteroid was a sure kill. But the nukes? The nukes were the real detonator. His clearance didn't give him the authority to speak at the Defense Council table. He wasn't allowed in the Roosevelt Room at briefings. But he had already sent 3 encrypted warnings to the White House cyber desk. No one replied. Connor tugged at his tie. He hated suits and hated these marble halls where men in uniform smiled while the world burned. He had enlisted once, 18 years ago, only to discover that wars were fought less with bullets and more with words behind closed doors. And this was the biggest war yet. At the far end of the corridor, General Kane appeared, his boulder-like frame moving with the practiced ease of command. Connor felt the chill of inevitability sweep through him. He didn't need to check his models again. Pulling a strike order was not in Kane's DNA. Los Alamos, back to the team. Maria Torres leaned closer, lowering her voice. We can't talk them out of it. They made their decision before the asteroid even appeared. To them, this isn't about survival. It's about power. Hegemony, Daniel muttered. They want to be the ones to claim they saved Earth, even if the saving is worse than the threat itself. They think history books will remember the launch like Normandy. They don't realize history books may not survive. Arun tried again, a little desperateness coating his words. So what do we do then? Sit here and watch? Just leaked data scientists in a bunker? It's not like we can walk into the White House and stop the button push. No one answered for a long span. The truth of his words stung too deeply. Finally Maria spoke, voice firm. We don't need to walk in. We need to cut the cord. If they can't launch, the decision dies in command. Daniel stared at her. You're talking sabotage. Yes. Her brown eyes were steady now, with no tremor in her voice. We've intercepted the authorization channels before. The launch codes pass through fewer relays than people think. You stop the signal in the sequence, and the missiles don't fire. Arun exhaled. Jesus. You're suggesting we break into the most secure defense network on the planet. In 71 hours. Daniel let the words linger in the air. He thought of his sister in Chicago, of his father's house on the Maine coast where the Atlantic would eventually swallow everything. He thought of innocents who had no idea that invisible hands were deciding whether they lived or died. Then we learn fast, Daniel finally said. His voice was quiet but unshaking. Because if we don't, then in less than 3 days it ends. And if they fire the nukes. Maria finished his sentence. We won't even have 3 days. We'll have 10 minutes. The whisperer of global panic. While they whispered through stolen satellite feeds, while generals arm wrestled over history, the public slept in fragile ignorance. There were whispers online about encrypted astronomy server leaks, and blurry images passed like ghost stories through Telegram channels. In Phoenix, a hobbyist posting to an amateur Star Watch forum was the first to upload grainy backyard telescope video. The comments were immediate and divided. Fake, half of them said. Real and we're screwed, said the other half. By noon, trending hashtags began breathing suspicions. Hashtag Skyfall, hashtag Asteroid Truth, and hash Impact 72. News anchors chuckled nervously and shifted topics. Markets rattled but didn't collapse. Not yet. Wars had been survived. Hurricanes endured. Perhaps this would be another crisis, smoothed over with talking points. The lie would not hold forever. Back in the bunker. The team's decision hardened with the desert sun outside. Maria stood and gathered the files. We either stop it here, she said, or nobody does. We don't have army divisions. We don't have presidents waiting for our advice. But we have what they don't. Daniel tilted his head. Which is? The truth. And for the first time in days, Daniel felt a grim flicker of hope. Behind him, unseen from their underground slit windows, the New Mexico sky shimmered a deep cobalt blue. It looked infinite, untouchable. No one standing on the scrub grass above could fathom what was really coming. But in their bunker, in the measured silence of scientists turned accidental soldiers, they knew. 71 hours. A handful of people. A decision that could end the world in silence, or plunge it into fire 10 minutes early. The clock kept ticking.
वीडियोस बनाने हैं फिल्मोरा है ना।